Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Surviving Out of Spite. My name is Smith Sauer, and I'm your host. Very excited for today's episode. Today, I got to talk with the founders of Dateability. It's a dating app that's rewriting the rules for people living with chronic illness and disability. We got talking about rejection, invisibility, and the painful realities of mainstream dating apps and how those experiences fueled their drive to build something radically more inclusive. From personal illness journeys to building a community-first platform, this conversation is about reclaiming worth, redefining desire, and proving that disability doesn't make you undateable. It makes you real. Stay tuned. So, hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today. We're really excited to hear more about Dateability and your stories. I'll give you a little bit of time to introduce yourselves and share a little bit about you with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline. I'm 31 years old. I am disabled due to a bunch of chronic illnesses that really started to occur when I was a young teenager. Some of those disabilities include Ehlers-Danlos, gastroparesis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, uh, common variable immunodeficiency, just really, spoony with a walking alphabet soup is what I recently read someone say. Um, I liked that. And yeah, the founder of Dateability, which is the only dating app for disabled and chronically ill people.
And I'm Alexa. I'm Jacqueline's older sister. I am not disabled or chronically ill, but having been through Jacqueline's journey with her by her side, we lived together. We've lived together as adults for almost a decade.
Yeah.
I'm a fierce advocate for the community and also a co-founder of Dateability.
Well, we appreciate both of you, and just thank you so much for being here. I know when I came across the app, I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, I'm married, so I'm not interested in getting in there. But I was like, what is this? And where was this when I was on the dating apps trying to find somebody? So, as a chronically ill person myself who has tried dating and tried all different ways. Like, when do you tell somebody? Do you put it in your profile? Because, in reality, we're not going out to meet people anymore. We're meeting them online and then deciding if we want to get the time and energy together to go meet somebody, right? So, I tried so many different ways, and some worked a little bit, some worked not at all. I've been ghosted the moment I said something. I got very, very lucky with my husband, who, as he's my husband, we did pretty good. But he was able to hear me, see me, and really accept every part of me. And he's been trial by fire ever since we got married with my health issues. So, not everybody has that story, and not everybody necessarily feels comfortable talking about their illnesses at the jump or even in the middle. And then it makes this messy area where you're like, what do I do? How do I, like, I've been lying for so long. How do I bring this up now? So I imagine, Jacqueline, that's some of what you went through and what got the ball rolling to really make something like this into a reality.
Exactly. I struggled with all of those things, and I did a lot of experimenting too, and trying to disclose from the get-go on my profile that would result in no one liking me. Then I would only disclose if I like absolutely had to, and then that would scare the person away, or I would wait a little bit and then it would feel like I wasn't able to be myself because while my disability, my chronic illness isn't the only thing about me, it really has shaped who I am. And so many of my life experiences and perspectives have stemmed from being chronically ill and feeling like you can't share that part. It just brings this heavy weight of like shame and really just low self-esteem. It
Yeah.
really I was really frustrated with dating and trying to find a way where I could be honest about my chronic illness while not scaring someone away, but also not sugarcoating it because I would tend to like I bring humor into a lot of things, naturally, and so I would just make a joke of it, and then maybe someone wouldn't understand the severity of it. Or if I really did tell someone, oh, hey, I've had over 40 surgeries, then they're like immediately no. I'll just go on to the next person who, you know, might be just as great and doesn't have a chronic illness.
Mhm.
And that was a problem that we really wanted to solve with Dateability, just personally, and I knew that other people experienced it too.
Now, Alexa, as a sister and co-founder with this, how did you see these experiences, that she was going through, and how did that really, because you mentioned you're a fierce advocate for your sister, so how did going through those experiences with her on the sidelines kind of help you become co-founder and really want to take this journey with her?
It was hard to watch when she would find someone who would, I use this term loosely, accept her, because I think there was still a lot of stigma coming from that person. Not to shame them or put them down, but they were never what I thought my sister deserved. I thought my sister
Yeah.
deserved much more, and I felt like she was settling for these people. And so the whole experience was frustrating to watch. It was sad to watch. Sometimes she wouldn't tell me everything, I think because she had a lot of embarrassment. But it was, 2021, COVID, Jacqueline needed to get a feeding tube for her gastroparesis. And it kind of freaked me out. I mean, we have been through heart surgery, brain surgery, jaw surgery. We have been through so much together. And this one was probably like the biggest surface level lifestyle change, right? I liked to cook for the both of us or go out to brunch. And I wasn't sure if we'd ever be able to do that again and what that would look like. And so I, was having this narrative in my head. If I'm freaking out about this, how is somebody who already is kind of has this stigma about disabilities and who has no idea what any of it entails, how are
Yeah.
they feel? And, she's already been struggling. And now I feel like, that I'm struggling to along with this journey with her. And I really worried for her dating life, her social life in the future. And so it was at that time when I wanted to solve the problem for her. I'm a lawyer,
Hmm.
so problem solver. I was like, let's do it ourselves. Like, no one else is doing it. So if no one else is
Yeah.
gonna, we're gonna do it. And I think the pandemic was the right time. I was, really starting to see the divide between the disabled and non-disabled communities, especially when it came to mask precautions and who's at risk. And so I was becoming even more aware on like a wider scale of the differences and what the disability community has to face. And so, yeah, I decided like that was the most irrational decision I've ever made in my life.
Impulsive.
Impulsive. Not irrational, yeah, impulsive, or maybe it was irrational at the time, but it
Yeah.
turned out to not be irrational, right?
Hmm.
And I'm happy that we did it. Our instincts were right. We just followed our gut.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know, talking about like feeding tube stigma, I had a feeding tube myself, and I know that there are so many people in our direct community and other communities as well, because we're not the only, like gastroparesis is not the only disease that requires a feeding tube. And we see so often that people are like, well, I can't do anything anymore now because I have a feeding tube. Like everything is over. And rightfully so. I think I had that to a degree myself, but I was incredibly lucky to have a group of friends who I met online who had already had feeding tubes, been in that space, and they're like, hold on, like, we've got you. Let me tell you, like, get this tubey pad, like, get these clips, do this, like, make it part of your life and kind of almost take the medicine piece of it out of it and just make it become a part of you in any way. And it helped me really accept myself. I know that when I was starting to date and I was still using my feeding tube at the time, and I'm like, what do I do here? Like, how do I tell somebody? And I tried in so many different ways. And some people were like, absolutely not, disappear. Other people were like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And Jacqueline, you were talking about like when you sugarcoat it a little bit. I'm like, oh, I just don't eat normally, but like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And then it's like, they see what you actually have to go through and like what you're dealing with. And they're like, this is not what I signed up for. Or you kind of trauma dump all over them. They're like, this is not what I signed up for. So you're in that in between stage where it's like, there's a stigma on it in particular that we give ourselves. And I think with medical devices, it's a little bit harder because it's such a visible change for a lot of that. Whether you're using a mobility device, you have a feeding tube, you're on TPN, something that changes how you look and how you see yourself. And then you worry about how other people are going to perceive you. And if we haven't worked through that, I can only imagine for a lot of people, ourselves included, that how do you put yourself in a literal situation for somebody to kind of pick you apart and judge you? Because that's what we're all doing in the beginning. We're trying to figure things out and trying to say, what do I say here? Am I honest? What do I do? How do I handle this? It's I haven't even found the perfect advice to tell somebody like this worked for me, so try this. Like, I think it's so different and so variable for everyone. Also, because I think that depends on how much your chronic illness impacts your life too. Some people can live relatively normal lives and just explain that they have something and move on. Other people like us, we don't have that ability to do that. And, it can turn into rejection, hurtful comments, and it can really just say, well, I'm done. I'm out. I want nothing more to do with this. I'm not trying this anymore. And Jacqueline, I can imagine you've probably had quite a few of those moments like the rest of us before having the access to Dateability and really deciding like, I want to minimize the hurt and what can come out of that rejection.
Yeah, absolutely. The people would tell me that I should never have biological children because I would be at risk of passing on my conditions. And this is without knowing anything about being disabled or my
Yeah.
disability. And to say that is just totally off base. And then, or people's parents would hear about someone who would for instance, this guy was starting to date me and we were really enjoying ourselves, and he told his mom about me, and she was like, oh, your aunt's best friend's cousin had lupus and she was miserable, and so you should do it as fast as you can. And you did. And without torturing me for a couple months, me trying to convince him that no, 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 I, I'm worth it. But so it's really hard, and there's just so much judgment from even like outside forces to the person that you're dating, whether that be from family or friends. And then, just all those misconceptions about what it is to live with a chronic illness or a disability. People just don't understand it, and they seem to not even want to give it any thought,
Yeah.
any time of day, any consideration, which is why finding someone who at least knows what that world looks like is really
Hmm.
helpful. You said you were finding friends who had feeding tubes and they were able
Hmm.
to give you advice, and that is that's invaluable to have
Yeah.
people who share these common perspectives, these experiences. And I think it's a really important part of life and in dating.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that for all of the things that I've been through in the last decade plus since my first diagnosis, that the virtual support, that's turned into real, authentic friendships with some people that I've never met, but I would consider a huge part of my life. And even if maybe they were part of my life in the past and maybe not so much now, like I really got so much out of that relationship because it just was somebody that understood. And we've talked about that in other episodes of the podcast, where it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that has the same illness as you or the same thing, but just the level of understanding, like, yes, I did that yesterday. No, I can't do that today. Or yes, I'd like to hang out, but maybe in our pajamas quietly, like with the lights dim, maybe a movie, maybe a nap, really just meeting you where you are. And for able-bodied people, dating is difficult. Even just socializing, making friends. Like, I'm 35 and I barely know how to make friends like outside of my house anymore because between COVID and illness and just life, I'm like, I forget like how to talk to people. I forget how to do those things. And then you just add these other obstacles to that. And it's not that you can't do it. It's like you kind of lose your desire to want to do it, because if you can't guarantee me that this is going to end in a positive way, like I want nothing to do with it, because I'm too tired. Like I'm going to use my spoons for a shower, for food, and, to take my meds and do what I need to do, not for something that might not actually result in anything. And I just love that what you guys have built is kind of pulling back that narrative a bit and really trying to give people that opportunity and the confidence and the courage to kind of step back out there and to see, what can I do and where can I go? So I'd love to talk a little bit more about the app and how it works, because there's so many out there. So in logging in, making your profiles and everything, do you have a way that you suggest about like disclosing illnesses in a way, or anything really about you? Do you have a way that you would suggest to people on how to do that or what to say in their profiles?
Yeah, that was something that was really important to us when we were developing the app. And I think that my perspective as a non-disabled person can sometimes help bridge the gap.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what's a way to make this not medical, not read like a medical chart, make it not clinical? And so we came up with a Dateability Deets section. It's on your basic information of every profile, like with your hometown and your age. And so it's a broad list of terms, no diagnoses. It's completely optional, but it's like wheelchair user, immunocompromised, food allergy, and you can select the ones that best apply to you, and it
Mm-hmm.
just goes on your profile, and there you go. I think that it does take away the anxiety of how do I tell, because it gives you a way to
Yeah.
disclose right then and there. It does it in a really neutral way.
Mm-hmm.
It's to be expected on the app, of course. The majority of the people on our app are disabled or chronically ill, although not all of them are. But when you're joining Dateability, you know that the majority of users are going to have a disability or chronic illness.
Yeah.
And then I think, it's a nice way to kind of figure out maybe one's accessibility needs or accommodations without having to dive right in to the nitty
Mm-hmm.
gritty. So if somebody put that they are a wheelchair user, I know that, we're making strides in like the outdoor activities and hiking and making that accessible, but it's a lot harder, right? So then maybe you
Yeah.
wouldn't suggest a hike on the first date, and you would pick an accessible bar instead. And you don't have to delve in. It's just like really nice. It's kind of there. It eases, kind of like eases things, takes the pressure off. And so that was really important to us. And while the section's optional, most people, like 99% of people, fill it out because it's the whole point, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to make dating and love accessible here, and welcoming and neutralize disability. And so that section, that Dateability Deets section, really does that.
Yeah, I love that. It does take like the pressure off, the way that you explained it. It's like, just tell me about yourself. So you just tell about yourself. It's not like, give me your my chart. Like there's no
Right.
uploading of that in there, right? Like, to really pull back on that medical jargon. I think that really stuck with me as you said that, because I find myself, I use a lot of medical jargon just in my life. I work in advocacy. I'm a patient. I deal and understand in medical jargon all day long. But layman's not gonna know that. So as what I think sounds really easy and what I think makes sense to someone else, it's like I might as well be speaking a different language, because really I am. So I like that you guys really thought that through and broke that down in a way that works for the person who is telling that information, but also for the person who's absorbing that information. So that I can really see a lot of the thought that went into that.
Because even if you are disabled, if you don't share the same disability with another person, like you're probably not going to know a whole lot about it. You'll be like a
Hmm.
layperson, right?
Yeah.
Learn another diagnosis. It's also like not super fun. I think, like, the medical chart, like, disabled and Jacqueline spends enough time as a patient, like
Yeah.
you just said, like you spend so much time advocating and being a patient. Like, let's like ease up on that a little bit. And, dating should be fun,
Hmm.
and right to feel like a modern dating app so that anyone can join. And so that's what we really wanted to achieve for that section.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just really wanna normalize it and
Mhm.
just show that you don't need to be ashamed, you don't need to hide it. And it isn't this like big scary thing. It's just something that exists about you. And I
Yeah.
think that when you present it in a way that that not even like it with confidence, but just in this neutral matter of fact sense, it really signals to other people, especially people who are unfamiliar with disability, that it's okay and it's normal to us.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget a lot of like the weird things that I do, like even just hooking up to IV meds, dealing with my port and central lines and all these things. I'm like, yeah, that's easy as I'm just talking to somebody. And I'm like, this isn't normal for you. I'm so sorry. Like for me, I'm like, yeah, that's just an everyday thing. And then someone else is like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, it's fine. This is totally normal, but it's not for other people. And that's actually something that I have taken for granted being around like my mom, my husband, my close family. Like they don't look at me any differently. I can whip an IV bag out. I can give myself injections. They're not even going to notice that I did it because it's so normal, like for them now. And my nieces and nephews have asked questions like, what does that thing do again? And what is that? And you tell them, and they're like, okay, whatever, that I'm bored now. And then they're off, So there's it's so interesting to hear how you guys approach this because it's something that I've realized in the last couple of years that I need to work on is a person. I'm like, why don't you understand me? I'm like, well, why am I not trying to be understood? What am I maybe not doing to make asking questions approachable or just assuming that this is fine for you because it's normal for me? So the thought process here is wonderful. Now, with the app, do you find that there are a lot of people, I'll say able-bodied people that come in, maybe that have a connection to chronic illness, or maybe even how do you market toward that group of people as well to show that this is just a dating app, but it's just an inclusive one?
Yeah, I would say that, of course, our target market are people with chronic illnesses and disabilities, just because there are millions of dating apps out there for
Mm-hmm.
non-disabled folks, but that the people who are able-bodied and non-disabled they're joining Dateability, they usually do have some sort of connection to disability, whether it's just completely normal for them because they grew up with a disabled parent or a family member, or maybe they
Sure.
work in a career that deals with disabled people. And so typically these people have either a loose or a close connection to
Mm-hmm.
our community, and that's been really helpful. I see, people signing up who say they they're like, I don't have a disability, but I really just don't care if you have one, and it's really lovely to see. And I think that integrating the non-disabled community and the disabled community is important, just obviously for um, diversity reasons.
I think
Yeah.
also, the other apps can be very superficial, kind of toxic, very daunting. And so, Dateability likes to make things more about community, and I think that's really attractive to people who are not disabled. I also think that disability and chronic illness is not like a black and white thing. We worked with somebody who
Absolutely.
has type 1 diabetes, obviously has had it for decades, and never really thought about themselves as chronically ill until they started working with us and then realized how much of their life it has shaped and that they really are. And so there's those questions too. And we will get emails from people saying, I have this, or, I'm ADHD. Does that count as a disability? Can I join? And that's why we don't want to put like a hard stop on anything. We just
Gotcha.
want to be inclusive. And because to be inclusive, we have to include everyone, as long as they respect our mission and their values align with what the app's trying to do. So, and we found that approach has worked.
And I think that
Yeah.
is and for us to welcome non-disabled people simply because that person joining could be non-disabled today, but tomorrow
Hmm.
perhaps they aren't. And so it isn't this thing that you're never going to become. Most people are going to become disabled or be diagnosed with a chronic illness at some point. And so just remembering that disability is really fluid and things can change day by day, and be totally welcoming.
That was
Yeah.
always the thing that daunted me about Jacqueline's, or like dumbfounded me about Jacqueline's dating experiences, was that these guys would be so against dating her because she was disabled. And I was like, I just cannot wait until, like, not like I'm wishing on them, but like just you wait until you're
Yeah.
either 70 or earlier or something happens. And yeah, and you're disabled, and you're gonna wish that you had treated Jacqueline the way you would want to be treated. And, I think that that's partly why everyone doesn't like people don't want to learn about disability, because it freaks them out, and they like to just like live in ignorant bliss until or if they become disabled. But at the same time, like you will very likely age into disability. Like treat others the way you want to be treated when that
Yeah.
time comes for you.
Yeah, I see that a lot in different because my like day job, I work with a lot of different patients from different backgrounds, different disease states, different ages, and it's like two things that we can escape is aging and disability. And it's like, so why are we treating those two populations so terribly? You might not end up in both of them, but you will end up in one of them at some point. So when you're there, wouldn't it be nice to not say, man, I wish that, I was treated better here, or I wish there were like, that's where this mindset and the mission that you guys have, really fits into that inclusive mindset. Like you hear the term woke or inclusive and people like start to roll their eyes at you. And it's like, because you just hear it so often and people are talking so much. It's like, but if you would just sit down and just listen and hear what people are saying who live and breathe in these communities, whether they're working with them, they're an ally to that community, or they're living in that community. Like there's so much happening that just a little bit of empathy from everybody would go a damn long way. And I never understood why it doesn't. But that's because we live and breathe this community. So we see this. And I think the more these conversations happen, the more people like yourselves are like, I see a hole here. Well, why not just do something about it? Instead of complaining about it, do I have the ability to do something about this? And the fact that you guys saw that and said, well, not why me, you said, why not me or why not us? And all of a sudden, this thing is here and it changes lives for people. It changes perspectives for people and it gives people a chance to feel a sense of normalcy and feel empowered and have that confidence to really say like I'm worth something. Whenever somebody would ghost me or be in a situation where like, yeah, sorry, like I want nothing to do with you. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like I'm actually really cool if you get to know me. I talk a lot, but I'm really cool. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with me, but this has everything to do with them. But it took years and years of feeling like that, what's wrong with me, and a lot of conversations with my mom and my therapist to realize that it's not me. And if they left in the beginning, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to every man that walked away from me because I have a gem of a husband. So you paved the way for an absolutely wonderful person to come into my life. So, really, thank you. But not everybody has that opportunity because they stop and they give up because they don't want to do anymore. And can't blame them. We've all had that feeling. I think everybody trying to date has probably actually had that feeling at one point or another.
And I will say, as I went through all of those feelings and was like, yeah, what you know, what's wrong with me? And I wish I wasn't disabled. And if only they got to know me before. And then I would also be like, but this was something that I had unpacked in therapy. My therapist would say, would you ever consider dating someone with a chronic illness? And then my
Mhm.
immediate answer was no. And I said, my God, like what a miserable life that would be. Like two of me, I don't want that. And she said, okay, well then if you're thinking that way about yourself, like what is
It's
it's
so interesting.
aware that someone is thinking that way about you.
Mhm.
And it was a light bulb moment. And I said, oh my God, like totally. I am discriminating against myself. I am imagining a life with someone like me would be miserable, and that's what other people are imagining. And
Mhm.
from there, I was like, "Oh, I actually think dating someone with a chronic illness would be much easier and much happier and more stable and just so much more forgiving and pleasant."
Mhm.
And I think that it is something that our community does struggle with. We will get feedback from people with chronic illnesses who say, like, I would never date someone with a chronic illness because how would I ever
So
get anything
interesting.
done? How like this would be miserable. Who would be there to take care of me? And we always come back with, well, disability is so diverse, even among the same diagnoses. On our app, there's people who may have sustained a spinal cord injury, but then there's someone who has ADHD. And then there's just so many different types of disability. There might be someone else with gastroparesis on our app and who doesn't have a feeding tube and just really
Mhm.
has to, eliminate a handful of foods. And so it is just so diverse. And I don't think that two chronically ill or two disabled people make an unhappy or unreasonable relationship at all. I think there's just so much internalized ableism, people telling us that we don't make good partners. So we look
Mhm.
at us that and we see them as making bad partners. And it takes a long time to really unwork that thought process and those beliefs and stereotypes, but that's what we're trying to do.
Or we'll see that the
Yeah.
opposite. We don't need this app. Like disabled people can date on other apps. I mean, yes, of course, but
Mhm.
Jacqueline needed the app, and I think that that still stems from like disability is a bad word. So if I'm joining an app for disabled people, I'm like admitting that there's something wrong. No, you're just
Mhm.
admitting that you're disabled and that you want a community based app. I would love a community app for all of my uh interests and hobbies and things that make up me who I am. But and it's okay. But I think it still comes back to that like disability is bad or something to be ashamed of. But our
Yeah.
success in the app tell a different story,
Yeah,
right?
the proof is in the pudding. It
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, I love that. I know we've had a couple different conversations in the last year about identity and chronic illness, and it's so dynamic and people fall in different camps, and I'm kind of like I move around. There are some days where I sit firmly in my disabilities. Like, this is who I am because I'm maybe advocating for something and I want people to see my illnesses. I want them to see what I've been through. And there are other times where I'm like, I'm so grateful that they're invisible and that you can't see shit, that you don't know anything. You're not judging me. You're not seeing anything. I just look like your average person. And then for the most part, I like to live in the middle. But that for me comes with I acknowledge that I have limitations and things to do, but do not tell me what my limitations and things to do are. I will try to surpass them. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to figure it out myself, where you're just trying to see where you fit that day. And it changes day to day. I woke up this morning completely inflamed and I could barely walk. I could barely use my hands. And my husband's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I don't know what is going on today. Night and day from this morning to right now, and that for me is like really what ends up happening, where you have moments where you're firmly sitting in your illness, in your disability. It is front and center driving the car and you're just down for the ride. And then other days it slides into the passenger seat and allows you some movement. And I find that the more that, at least for me, that I acknowledged the issues that I had, the easier mentally it became to live with them. Physically, that's always a whole other story. But mentally, it really allowed me to say, like, this is part of me. This made me into the person I am today, but it's not all of who I am. And again, going back to that, your answer, Alexa, in the very beginning about how do you put your disabilities in there, I feel like that's kind of a way to actually do that, where it's like, this is just there. It's just, that's what it is. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about it. It's serious. You have questions, happy to answer. If you don't, let's move on, and it just, it's like you were saying, interests or all these different things. It's like, it just becomes a part of you and really changes how you see yourself. And we love a good therapist moment. We love those anecdotes that really pull you back and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, what did you just say to me? And that sticks with you. And it sounds to me like that really defined a lot for you in your individual journey with your self-image and how you see yourself. And that reflects outwardly on like what you want for yourself, how you see yourself, maybe completely change the plan of what you thought your life was going to look like, and it didn't close a door, it opened up a bunch more. And the more that we're open to these conversations and to these learning moments, I can only imagine more doors will continue to open for more people and really just give them so much more of a life when, we thought it was really small. It's actually a really big world out there. And there's no reason that just because you have a disability, you can't see more of it.
I completely agree. And something that I struggled with, and Alexa touched on this, is that I never allowed myself to be picky or to have any sort of real standards. I really compromised on what I wanted because I thought that that was the best I was going to get and I should take that and be happy with it. And just throughout this whole process and just all these years of living with chronic illness and trying to do exactly as you said, like have it be you, but not all of you. I have realized that I absolutely deserve to be picky
Hell yeah.
and like I can say no to people if they are interested in dating me. I do not have to go with just anyone who likes me. And that is a really liberating feeling when dating and just figuring out your worth and
Yeah.
knowing what you want is really important.
Yeah, I love this so much because I can see just it's molded so like the mission in behind the app is so much of you molded into it. And like it's almost like it molded back, right? Because there's so many things that sounded like you've learned from before this was a thing, before it was even an idea to now, and really helped you see different perspectives. And that's wonderful. Really is. I love that. So I do want to ask though for Dateability, because we've got other apps that are similar and you've mentioned the word community a couple times. Are you expanding or branching out into other options for meeting people with, friendships or just platonic meetups, anything along those lines and not just dating?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we eventually one day would love to make a strictly platonic friendship app, but right now we have a looking for section on every profile, and if you put
Okay.
friendship, I think people are pretty open to that, and pretty respectful. I haven't heard of anyone shaming somebody for being on a dating app and looking for friendship, because I think that, everyone's just looking for kind of companionship, and that can come in several different forms. Sometimes they're looking for dating, and those people end up becoming their friends, right? And they find friendship. And so, yeah, we definitely just value community. We do try to host in-person events too, to, bridge the gap between the physical world and the internet world, and bring people really together. And we are just, promoting community. We did have this strong push from potential investors in the beginning to get rid of the dating element and just do platonic. And I think that's because the idea of intimacy and disability made them uncomfortable. And we really, no, this is
Interesting.
first and foremost a disability dating app.
Mm-hmm.
Friendship is encouraged, and one day we will create a whole new platform, but right now, like, this is the problem we set out to solve, and I think that this is a problem that a lot of people experience, and we're going to stick to that. Yes, but we do just want everyone to find someone, whether it's a friend or a friendship. Sorry, a friend
Yeah.
or a relationship.
Yeah. Or even just one night thing, casual hookup. We really encourage people to just be themselves and be open about what they want on the app, and that Dateability is the place that you can do that and you won't be judged for it.
Yeah, that's great. I know, like I met my husband on Bumble, and I've used like Bumble BFF to try to meet people in the area. When we got married, we moved into a new town, and I'm like, I don't know anybody. And again, I don't go to bars, I don't drink, so I'm like, where do people my age meet people? I actually ended up joining I haven't gone in quite a while just because of like life things, but I joined a crochet group at the library. And when I went, I was the youngest one there. And I loved the ladies there. They were wonderful, but I'm like, this isn't exactly what I was looking for. The camaraderie was there, and I actually learned a lot from them because I'm like, what stitch do I do here? And they definitely fixed a lot of that for me. But there's other things where I'm like, I would love to go hiking. My husband and I like to hike, when my body allows it, and really when his allows it too, so we're like, how do we find people that like to do that? So I think having a place, especially with chronic illnesses, to be like, I like hiking, but it has to be really flat and like under a certain amount of mileage, right? Like that's all that I can do. Or I'm a foodie, but these are my limitations. And it sounds like internally those are conversations that you can foster between two people. But I do love the idea of a larger community, and it's great to see that that's hopefully on your radar at some point when time allows, for growth with you guys. But I really can't thank you both enough for being here and, sharing about all of this and the growth you both have had personally and professionally. Building something from the ground up is never easy, and, you did it beautifully. I can imagine there were probably some bumps in the road that you're like, if only she knew. But
Yes,
I love the mission. I love this, and I can't wait to share it with our community because we get questions all the time on, dating. When do we disclose this? How do we disclose this? And like, I'm interested in intimacy, but I don't know how to do that. Like, where do I put my feeding tube? Where do I put this? What do I do with this? How do I keep things sanitary in these situations that are inherently not super sanitary? And like, how do I communicate that? So, a lot of what you're trying to solve are some of the conversations that we're having, across multiple disease states, because this is not a one disease issue. It's a total, you know, across all of our chronic illnesses, that I think everybody's had at least one experience where you're like, this makes me want to quit. And I just love that you didn't. So thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing your story. And I just really am excited to get this out there and show people that there are apps out there that are not grimy and scary to log into.
Absolutely. We have weddings coming up. We have people who have
I
started
love
long
that.
distance. Now they've moved, states away from each other to start a new life.
Oh my
We have
gosh.
people with chronic illnesses. We have had people with intellectual disabilities, really, and also of all ages as well. And so
Hmm.
really do see the success that Dateability brings people. And even if you don't find your person on Dateability, and it just gives you that confidence to
Yes.
in any part of your life, that's a win for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, I can't wait to keep championing you guys and sharing everything and seeing updates as they go. And thank you again for being with us. And we will get all the information out there, and hopefully you'll get some new signups after this episode airs.
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you.